What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It is time for a review of the debut album by UK singer-songwriter and budding talent Declan McKenna. It's called What Do You Think About the Car? It's something that he said whenever he was younger. His parents got a new Toyota and that's what he says, but he's like, nah, I'm gonna go focus on writing my album because he had talent. He was starting to really break through. He won the Glastonbury Emerging Talent New Artist Award in 2015 and his single Brazil really took off, not only in the UK, but really all over the world, including topping the Alt Nation charts here in the United States. Now, somehow, I never heard of this kid. I never heard of him. He's 18 now. It took him a while to get this album together, but I had a lot of requests to talk about this record, and I was like, okay, if this many people want it, it's gotta be something special. And honestly, I am happy to sit here and tell you today that this record is good. It shows a lot of faith, a lot of promise, and somebody that's new breaking onto the scene. I always like seeing someone like Jake Bugg or Declan McKenna or whoever it might be, somebody that's doing something a little bit different or else doing something a little bit retro but putting their own spin on it instead of just all of the trends of today like trap, hip-hop, and R&B. It's not to say that I have no love for those genres, it's just that they're oversaturated at this point. I think that that's pretty well known, just like indie rock revival was in the early to mid 2000s, but now I don't feel like there's enough people doing raw things, real things, organic instrumentation, and here Declan McKenna mainly plays with an indie rock vibe, something for the alternative, rock, and even maybe just a hint of synth pop flair. And not to say that that gets out of control, it's just nice to see the poppy tendencies with the choruses, like on the opening track in one of the singles, Humongous, which is ear candy to be quite honest, and even some of the moments that take on those synthesizers, like Isambard, that does it well. It takes those influences and other sounds and mixes it and stirs the pot perfectly. Now throughout, Declan writes not only from his own perspective, but he also takes from what's around him, whether it be politics, another person's perspective, or just his social commentary on the world around him. And honestly, he has a very sharp mind for just being 18, and the majority of this record was penned from the time he was 15 to 17. So really just sitting in his bedroom composing the majority of these songs and making them, it's impressive. McKenna is clearly willing to steer into some topics and some territories that most will not go into, like Paracetamol, for example, that explores death, and it was inspired, at least in part, by the passing of a transgender teen. Unfortunately, her name was Leela, and her parents just did not accept her transition, and she ended up, after being forced into conversion therapy, she ended up hanging herself. And here he seems inspired and haunted by that, and he just feels that a lot of people in the LGBT community are misrepresented, and I'm really loving this tune. The way that it starts off, the vocals, it's something that stands out as an absolute highlight here because it has a melody that instantly hooks you. And some of the tracks on this record, that's my major complaint with it, they kind of run together, but ones like this definitely make themselves stand out. And even though it is a dark, very dark tone that it takes in the lyrical path, I think that it's something that definitely has a bright instrumental to contrast that. And it's like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We can make progress on this. We're maybe just not there yet, but I think this is probably the best song on the record. Why Do You Feel So Down is another one that takes from that same mindset and that headspace, I think, but he's trying to figure out maybe what is dragging someone down. And I love the synthesizers on that track. And you range from moments like this all the way to Make Me Your Queen, which is about unrequited love, it seems like, and I think it's another bold step for him, maybe stepping out a bit from his comfort zone on some of the more just kind of rocky, alternative, I don't know, indie rock of the 2000s inspired tracks, if you will, and he takes a little bit of a gamble there and it totally pays off. I would love to see more from him like that, Humongous, or even Brazil, which is his breakout track. It's one that sees him giving social commentary like I talked about earlier. It's something that's very, very brilliant from a young mind, and I like that he's basically saying, you know, we're doing all of these things to get noticed or to get on TV or to get glamour, but why is that the standard? But it's all guised with the sense of being a pop song. It draws you in. It's almost like clickbait in a sense because you're drawn to it like a magnet, but once you actually realize what's going on in the lyrical content, you just want to praise it and listen to it even more. Like I said, unfortunately a few of the cuts do kind of blend together for me, like Bethlehem, which is his take on religion, and I think people who really really want to be looked at some way, like, oh, I'm better than you or holier than thou and that sort of thing. And I totally get why some people are totally jaded on it. And that is a moment that I can understand and like from a lyrical perspective, but it just seems a bit flat with what it's doing with the guitars, even the drum pattern on the track. But I have to give a shout out to Declan because he plays all of the instruments on this himself, except for the drums, I believe, which is really, really cool. Like I said, just an emerging talent, and you don't see this too often. Someone who has just raised themselves up and is just making a name for themselves off of doing something that not everybody else is doing right now, not just riding the coattails of success of something else. I'm not huge on the closing track, Listen to Your Friends, either. It's something that runs on a bit long. I could say the same thing for the opening track, Humongous, which I love, but I just would prefer maybe some of the chatter to be cut out. Like the opening 3 tracks, you hear chatter from maybe his family on there, and I think a couple of other things. But some of the stuff, like on the Kids Don't Want to Go Home. I love the Kids Don't Want to Come Home. It's one of those tracks that's super, super sticky. It has a melody that will carry it for days and is going to keep you coming back to it. But the end of the song, it seems like he's talking to his little sister, and it just goes on and on. Oh, you're talking about the kids don't want to go home. And that's a terrible accent. I'm horribly sorry. My point is, maybe some of the tracks could have been shortened up just a bit. It's not like a huge thing, but it just kind of irks me, especially with repeated listens to the album. I'm a bit divided on moments like Isambard and especially Mind, because the chorus just gets kind of annoying the more it just repeats. Why'd you keep changing your mind, he sings. And it just, the more you hear it, the more I personally don't care for it, even though that kind of starkly contrasts my love for the verses of the track. It just seems like it builds up to something that just kind of churns over and over again. It's just like seeing the same wave repeat at the beach. All in all, this is a very promising debut album from Declan McKenna. I think that he's going places, and I really hope a second LP doesn't take as long to get out in the world, because while this kid is young, feeling inspired and stuff, I want to see him capitalize on that, and I think he has a lot going on up here that he could totally channel and write about. I'm excited to see what he does with his style. I hope he goes for more of these more bombastic choruses like he said he wanted to on Humongous. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I'm going to give his debut record, What Do You Think About the Car, a strong 3.5 out of 5. If you've heard it, sound off your thoughts in the comments section down below. Don't forget to drop a like on the video. It helps me out. And if you're able to further support, it's the Patreon right over here linked, or else the top link in the description down below. Anything helps, guys. I do appreciate it. A couple of recent videos right here. Socials in the description, and I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.